Hi, welcome back to 5 Minute Mark. Today I'll be recapping the first season of The Walking Dead Episode 4, a sci-fi post-apocalyptic TV series, in just 5 minutes. Watch out, spoilers ahead. Rick and the group continue the story from the rooftop, where they discover Merle is gone. Furious, Daryl immediately turns on T-Dog, pointing his crossbow at him and threatening to shoot. But Rick quickly steps in, raising his gun to Daryl's head and commanding him to stand down. Daryl eventually lowers his weapon, picks up Merle's severed hand, wraps it in a cloth, and slips it into Glenn's backpack, refusing to leave any part of his brother behind. They follow Merle's bloody trail into an office, finding Walker corpses, proof he fought through them single-handedly. The trail leads to a kitchen, where Merle's belt and patches of burnt skin on an iron show he cauterized his wound. An open window suggests his escape. They quickly shift focus to retrieving Rick's dropped gun bag, with Glenn volunteering to run, while Daryl covers him and Rick and T-Dog wait in a nearby alley as backup. Glenn quietly moves toward the guns, but Daryl senses a man sneaking up behind him and holds him at gunpoint. Daryl demands information about Merle, but the stranger calls for backup. His men swarm in, attacking Daryl just as Glenn returns with the bag. In the struggle, the attackers grab Glenn and take him hostage. Daryl fires an arrow, wounding one of them and forcing them to drop the bag, and Rick and T-Dog rush in after hearing the commotion, capturing one of the attackers and securing the guns. The captured man, Miguel, refuses to reveal where Glenn has been taken until Daryl threatens him with Merle's severed hand. Terrified, Miguel finally agrees to lead them to a hidden building controlled by a man named Guillermo. Rick tries to negotiate, but Guillermo insists the bag of guns is his and demands it in exchange for Glenn. Tension rises when Guillermo threatens to throw Glenn off the roof, unaware T-Dog already has him in his crosshairs. Daryl initially questions whether Glenn is worth giving up valuable weapons, but Rick reminds him that Glenn saved his life, so he intends to do the same. The three men escort Miguel back inside, and Rick firmly demands Glenn in return. Guillermo coldly claims he chopped Glenn up to feed his dogs, provoking Rick to aim his shotgun at him, seconds away from triggering a shootout. Before things escalate, an elderly woman enters asking Guillermo for help with a patient who is struggling to breathe. She mistakes Rick for a cop and begs him not to arrest her grandson Felipe, but Rick calmly explains he's only looking for Glenn. She unknowingly guides them deeper inside, where Rick discovers Glenn alive, helping care for sick and elderly people. And the dogs Guillermo referenced turn out to be harmless chihuahuas. Guillermo explains that when the outbreak began, doctors and nurses abandoned the old and vulnerable, leaving them to die, and he and Felipe stayed behind, pretending to be a hostile gang to protect their people from scavengers. Understanding the situation, Rick gives Guillermo several guns from the bag and leaves peacefully with Glenn and the others. When they return, they discover the truck is gone, stolen by Merle, who may be heading back to camp for revenge, so Rick and the group rush back. At camp, Jim obsessively digs several pits, ignoring Dale's concern and offer of water. Andrea and Amy return from fishing and distribute food, but the group grows increasingly worried as Jim refuses to explain his behavior. Shane tries to calm him and urges him to rest, but Jim becomes agitated, forcing Shane to tackle him so the group can tie him to a tree for safety. Once he cools down, Jim apologizes and blames the heat for clouding his mind. When Dale asks again why he was digging, Jim vaguely recalls a dream involving Rick and Carl, one where Carl seemed terrified, and warns Lori to keep her son close. Later that evening, Shane checks on Jim, finds him calmer, and unties him. The group gathers around the campfire for dinner. Carol invites Ed, but he refuses, still embarrassed after Shane's earlier beating, and stays alone in his tent. Hearing movement outside, he assumes it's Carol and angrily steps out, only to come face to face with a walker, which attacks him instantly. At the same time, Amy exits the RV after using the bathroom, and a walker bites her on the arm. Her scream alerts the camp, throwing everyone into panic as walkers rush in. The group fights back desperately, and Rick and his crew arrive just in time to eliminate the remaining walkers. Once the chaos settles, Jim suddenly remembers why he was digging, because in his dream, their camp was attacked, and many people died, exactly as they just witnessed. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this recap, leave a like and subscribe for more 5-minute movie breakdowns. I'll see you in the next one.